not a long-term solution. And that as that oxygen is restricted and that state continues, that things are going to continue to progress worse than they are currently. So we need to make sure of that. And then where I like to go to get back on track with the quality of life survey here, where I like to go from there is right to the first fill in the blank question there, which is how has this affected your job, relationships, finances, family, other activities? So basically their life effect, and again, hopefully they've given you a number of things to work with there already that they've written in. However, if they haven't, you can go back to the front of the page and question 3 and question 4, who else has been affected? What are you afraid it might turn into or it's already beginning to affect? Job, kids, future ability, marriage, self-esteem, finances, freedom, independence, all of that. So if they didn't give you much that they wrote in, you can go back to that and say, hey, Bill, I see here that you say this is affecting your kids and your home life and your marriage. Tell me a little bit about that. Okay? Tell me a little bit about what you mean by that. Okay, and get them talking. So again, the whole goal here is to get to the anchors and get them out. And I want at least 1 or 2 good ones, if not 3 or 4, okay? And I call them the anchors or the golden nuggets or whatever it is, their values, their quality of life issues, their life effects, whatever you want to call it, let's call them anchors. Make sure you understand them and you have them written down, because that is why they're going to commit to the plan. Not because of some fancy piece of equipment or nutrients or how great the technique is that you use in the office. It's to get their values back, their quality of life, to be able to walk up and down the bleachers at their grandson's football game or whatever the case might be. So on that note here, if you're taking notes, write this down. And if you're watching this for a multiple time into the future here, and you've already seen it, make sure you're doing this. Hone back in on this part. Some questions that you want to use. Tell me more about that. So tell me more. Tell me more about that. Number 1. Number 2, how does that make you feel? You want to get the emotion. You want to get the emotion behind it. And again, it needs to be genuine. It needs to be authentic. It can't seem, robotic. But in true, genuine concern with empathy, you want to know, you want to get all this right on the table. And sometimes I even tell people, I say, listen, Bill, I'm very blessed to be able to work with a whole lot of people, thousands of people over the years. And anymore, when I sit with someone, I don't water it down. If I get 45 minutes to sit with you and talk and go through this, I don't want to leave anything on the table. I want to just get it all out in the open, and so anyhow, if I need to do that, if they're a little bit closed off, I want to go there with it. All right. But first question, tell me more about that. Tell me more about what you mean by, and you can literally, again, you can even point to the paperwork. I see here, Mary, that you have, it says it's affecting your sleep, as well as your freedom. What do you mean by that? So again, the sleep, trouble falling asleep, waking up throughout the night, both, all of that stuff. I can't have my feet under the sheets. They're so sensitive, they need to be sticking out. They're so cold, I need to wear 2 pair of socks. How long has that been going on that you've had to wear the 2 pair of socks? So digging into the anchors, because again, we don't need a whole lot of stuff. We need 2 or 3 or so important key anchors, and we need to know them and know the emotion behind them. You see, that's really what this is about here. So question 1, tell me more about that. Question 2, how does that make you feel? And it can be where, maybe you're a team member and you're 22 years old and you're sitting with an 82-year-old man, and you're going to ask him how it makes him feel that he can't work in the garden, in the yard anymore, and for the first time in his life, he has to pay a teenage kid in the neighborhood to take care of his yard. you need to be able to stand in the gap and know that this isn't about you, it's about them and what they need and what they need you to be, what they need from you, which is concern, love, empathy, just caring attention to what's going on. And so again, a lot of times we need to remind ourselves that this isn't about us. So if we have insecurities or reservations or we're a little bit uncomfortable, we need to be okay getting out of our comfort zone. And if we need help with that, we need to talk to, our head doctor, clinic owner, office manager, talk to me, my team, whatever it is that we can do to help you, because these are the things that are really going to allow you to help more people is getting all this up here. Okay. So tell me more about that. How does that make you feel? So I use those regularly throughout that. Again, we got the first anchor down, they can't sleep. We talked about it. The second anchor down, they're not stable on their feet anymore. They don't feel like they can balance very well. They're afraid for, the upcoming football season this fall, if they're going to be able to go up and down the bleachers, or if, they have two friends who've already fallen. One of them broke their arm and wound up in the hospital. They don't want to do that. So, and then the third anchor, same thing. I find that I'm not able to do as many things around the house and around the yard as I used to, and I love being outside in the yard. It's something I really enjoy. Tell me more about that, Bill. What do you mean in particular? And then see what they say, or, can you go for about 5-10 minutes and then you need to take a break, or what? Yeah, exactly. I used to be able to go out there for hours, and now it's like, 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes, and it's like, I'm done and I need to rest and go back out the next day. How does it make you feel that, you're at this point with this? I'm ticked, or I'm frustrated, or whatever the case might be. Fear, concern, frustration, anger, guilt. I don't want to become a burden to my family. Worry, I don't want to have to move out of my home to an assisted living facility, whatever the case is. So again, I'm just going deep into this point of get their anchors, tell me more about that. Number 2, how does it make you feel? And again, if you've already established that, they're concerned, they're frustrated, they're worried, you don't need to ask them, how does it make you feel for every anchor? I'm just saying, use that as much as you need it, and make sure by the time you're done that consultation, you got their anchors and you know how it makes them feel. Okay? And so that's how I like to do it, right? Once I have that, the way I like to do it is I jump to the one just below the center line there on the back, and I just write MC for most concerned. And I like to ask them, and this is, age-old communication technique and understanding, the emotion behind it as well. What is it that concerns you the most about how this neuropathy is going, or how this neuropathy is progressing, Bill? That's how I like to phrase it. It says on the paper, and they've probably already filled out to a degree, what are you most concerned about regarding your problem? I like to rephrase it in terms of, for example, Bill, what is it that really concerns you the most about how this is going with this neuropathy, or how this neuropathy is progressing? You know what I mean? So what is it that concerns you the most? So, and that phrase, what is it that you're most concerned about? What is it that concerns you the most? Very powerful. And then right below that, I like to write, 1 to 3 on my notes, or wherever it is, right here on the paper. So the question is, on the paper, where do you picture yourself being in the next 1 to 3 years if this problem's not taken care of? So if we haven't already hit it, and I want to make sure this is crystal clear, I want to know from them where they think they're going to be if this is left uncorrected. So I might say something like, Bill, if this keeps going the way that it is, and if we're not to get to the cause of, where do you think you're going to be in another 2-3 years from now, or another year or two from now? again, I like to change it from, I don't like to say 1 to 3 years again. That's kind of robotic. It says it on the paper. It's redundant. I like it to be more conversational. Bill, if we don't get to the cause of this, if this continues to go left unaddressed, where do you think you're going to be with it in another year or two? You know what I mean? See what he says. And then what I like to finish up with is, what would that mean to you? The last one on the question. And now at this point in time, we've talked through the anchors, we've talked through the emotion, their biggest concern, the future pace, where they think they'll be if we don't address the cause in another year or two. So now at this point, I want a better answer than the world or everything, or that's why I'm here. On the paper, a lot of times they put that. What would that mean to you? The world, everything. That's why I'm here. Now, after discussing all this knee to knee with connection and rapport and some trust built, I want to know, what would it mean to them to be able to have confidence again in their ability to go up and down the bleachers and have more stability, getting around, to be able to sleep, get more deep, restful sleep, wake up more energized, to be able to work back in the yard again like he's used to doing. What would that mean if we could get that back for you? See what he says. It would just be the best. Well, Bill, that's why I'm here. This is why I do what I do. So I'm going to do everything that I can to help you to achieve that. And it's going to take some time. All processes require time, but I'm going to be as direct and realistic as I can with you to make sure we have a plan to do this and have clear expectations to get you back there. Something like that. Then to conclude this part of the training of the consultation and the quality of life, the transition into the exam, that's where we are now. So to transition into the exam, I just got done asking him what it would mean to him after going through all the anchors and the emotion behind it. What would that mean to you if we could get you back to doing X, Y, Z again? It would be incredible. Nobody's been able to help me to do that, and I had lost hope. It would give me hope again, and I can't really explain it. It would just be the best. Well, I'm going to do everything that I can, Bill, to make sure that we do our best. I'm going to make sure I do everything in my power to help you achieve that. And it's going to take some time. All processes require time. But what I like to tell people is that if we do what's right enough, long enough, the results are predictable. We've been doing this for years. We know the protocol. We know what works. It's just we need to get to it and just not be perfect, but be as consistent as we can. So what we need to do now, this is the transition. So what we need to do now is I need to make sure that I know what we're working with and that I can help you. And it's not too far progressed to turn it around. So what we're going to do is X, Y, Z, meaning the exam. So what we're going to do now is in just a minute here, I'm going to have you just take your shoes and socks off, and I'm going to go and get the few things that we need for our exam. And what we're going to do is we're going to test the sensory function of these nerves to see how far progressed it is, how much damage there is, and we'll come up with a percentage. It'll give us a percent of nerve damage. We're going to do that. I'm going to do some imaging to see for patterns of blood flow. And then we're going to take some pictures as well to see what's going on in the neck and the low back that might be contributing to this as well, what you're dealing with. Okay? All right. So great. So I'm going to have you just take your shoes and socks off. I'm going to close the door. I'm going to grab what I need. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. You need a bottle of water? You doing okay? Excuse me. Whatever it is. You need a bottle of water? You doing okay? All right, Bill. I'm excited to help you. Give me a couple minutes. I'll be right back in. Or now my team member, Ashley, is gonna, be right back in to do X, Y, Z. That is a good opportunity to utilize a team member to do the exam portion. The doctor does not need to do the exam portion. Now, how I've done it in our practice, when I was doing it, I would do the exam. How our team member now who runs the day ones and day twos. He does the exam, but actually, just to let you know, in our practice, we're getting into now, after years of doing this, having our team members start to do them. I think that that's wise to let people know that a doctor doesn't need to do it. And for the reassessments that we do in the future at the 3-month intervals, then they won't be caught off guard when a team member's doing the re-exam and not the doctor. So I think that that could be a good thing. And as well as for your office flow, if you're adjusting, if you're doing other kinds of things in the office, it doesn't need to require the doctor's time to do that. So with that said, I just want to finish with a couple thoughts, because there's variations of how to do this. With the transition, before you conclude that thought and exit the room and have them take their shoes and socks off, you can tell them that basically I'm going to do one of the assessments right now. I'm going to do the thermal imaging right now with you, so I can get an understanding of what this looks like, and then Ashley's going to be in to go over the rest, or I'm going to be right back to go over the rest. So you're going to have them take their shoes and socks off, and you can do the thermal imaging. There's different ways that you can flow with it. We'll discuss it on a case-by-case basis with what works best for you and your team. There's also something with the rebuilder that you can do as like an overall, I like to call it a 30,000 foot view test. So like the thermal imaging, it's going to show us patterns of heat and blood flow. The other thing here is the rebuilder. They have testing gloves or testing mitts. So I call it the mitt test, where you have the demo unit of the rebuilder. It plugs into conductive gloves, the mitts. And, long story short, when you feel that on healthy tissue turned up enough, it'll feel like a little bit of a tingling or a stronger tingling. And so a lot of times what you can do is their shoes and socks are off. If they have neuropathy that's progressed in their feet, up their ankles, halfway up their leg to their knee there, you can grab their toes and the ball of their foot with it turned up, and they're not going to feel it. And then you can start to work your way up the leg and the calf, and they'll let you know when they start to feel it in that healthy tissue. You see, so that's a way to utilize the exam to build value in that. Same thing, if Bill's there and his wife Carol came as well, and she doesn't have neuropathy, you can do it on her hand and she can feel the tingling right away, or her foot, but her hand would be easier. And Bill, you can't feel that on your foot at all? No, I don't feel anything. No, now I feel it, and it's almost up to his knee. You see, so you can do that with the rebuilder mitts. I don't in our office, just because we haven't had the need to. But what I do is, when we get into the exam portion, one of the sensory tests is with a cryo stick, cold. So that cold, I like to do it with that, because they already got their shoes and socks off, and I'm already doing the exam, and so we'll go over it. But they can't feel the cold on the top of their foot, or it's a 2 out of 10 compared to healthy tissue. But then I'll move it up halfway up their calf. Oh, I feel that. That's about an 8 there. Oh yeah, I can feel that just like my upper arm. That's a 10 right there as I move it up towards their knee. So I like to do the same thing with the cold or the blow dryer. We have a Revlon blow dryer that we use to get the hot sensation, the nerve fibers that test for hot. So I'll do the same thing. I'll hold it down there for 2 to 3 seconds on the top of the foot, about 3 inches away. Whatever they feel down there, little, nothing, whatever it is, but then I'll move it up the leg. Oh wow, I can feel that up there. Boy, yeah, that's something. Same thing. Carol sitting there, put it on her. Ooh, yeah, you can't feel that, Bill? And man, I didn't realize you couldn't feel it on your foot. So bringing her awareness into it as well. Anyway, there are a few components to consider. Once you have it dialed in, I would just do what works for you and your team. For us, we finish the consultation. That last question, what would it mean to you? Transition to the exam with what we're going to do now is I'm gonna have you take in just a minute, I'm gonna have you take your shoes and socks off, and I'm gonna leave the room, grab a couple of things that I need, and we're gonna test for sensory function or nerve function and see how much damage is there, how far progressed it is, to make sure we're catching it in enough time to turn it around. All right, so I'm excited, Bill. This is really good. Just give me a couple minutes, go ahead and take shoes and socks off. I'll be back with you in a couple minutes and we'll get right to it. And then, so that's how we do it. I like them to have their shoes and socks off for a couple of minutes to let them equilibrate, if that's the right word, to acclimate to the temperature in the room. They just had their socks on, their shoes, whatever it is. Get them off, let that acclimate, and then we come back in and we do the thermal imaging real quick, doesn't take long, and we explain that. I'll go over it with you in one of the next videos. And then we do the sensory test, the 16-point sensory evaluation. We go and finish the exam from there. So that's how we flow in our office. This has been a little bit of a longer, in-depth training. So what I would do is I would take notes throughout this training video in particular, and just write the timestamps on there. At this minute, we're talking about this. At this minute, we're talking about that. So you have in your notes where it is that we're discussing certain topics in this consultation process and the transition to the exam, so that as you're training in the future, you can come right back to it and just listen to the segments that are most appropriate for what you need at the time. All right, Dr. Dan McClyman, so excited to be working with you all, and I'll see you on the next video.